We need a detailed guide on how to get started with this device. What is available so far is incomplete. All right, let's do something about that, and I'll worry about what I got myself into later. Now, if you didn't know NVIDIA made ARM single-board computers, I can't blame you. Since the release of the Jetson TK1 in 2014, these boards have been aimed at companies working with robotics, avionics, autonomous vehicles, and industrial AI. And I had to do a bit of convincing to get Seed Studio to send over a reComputer Super J4012 to play around with. Let's have a look in the box. We got a manual, a nicely cut bit of foam, and my word, if I chunked this down a flight of stairs, I'd be worried about damaging the stairs. They even threw in a Type A to Type C cable, because that's not for power. Nay, it's how you install an OS on these critters. And speaking of power, you're gonna need a 19-volt 474A brick with a 5525 ARM business end, because Super isn't just marketing. It's an unlocked performance tier, and that means fussy power requirements. This is the new 16GB edition of the Orin NX, and that means 8 Cortex A78 cores instead of 6. At 1.9 GHz all-core max frequency, 1024 CUDA cores, and 32 tensor cores, clocked at 1173 MHz. And this compute stack supports CUDA 13 along with Vulkan 1.4, with encode and decode supported for H.264, H.265, and AV1. Now this case, it's basic, but built to survive just about anything. On the front, 2 slots for ribbon cables, cameras, sensors, things like that. On the rear, quad USB 3.2, dual gigabit ether noodles, a SIM slot, power jack, HDMI, and your rescue mode toggle along with a debug port. If we pop off the bottom, there's our CAN header, 4 15-pin MIPIs, RTC, mini PCIe, Wi-Fi, GPIO headers, and the NVMe containment unit. And that's the first thing you want to replace since it's a Gen 3 drive. And little green here supports Gen 4. Now this lid, it's basically a giant heatsink sitting on top of the Jetson module. It's a block of copper with 2 chunky heat pipes fitted into these fins to keep everything cool and quiet. And boy does it. But we need to get an updated OS on Little Green since it ships with Ubuntu 22.04. While it's still fully supported, I'm gonna need 24.04 for some of the upcoming shenanigans. Let's get to it. Welcome to the wild and wacky world of NVIDIA. Our options are Jetpack 6, which is Ubuntu 22.04 and Jetpack 7, and that's what we're going with. You can ignore the latest and stable since they both link to the same file. Let's give that a click, and while it's downloading, we need to switch over to recovery mode. Flip the switch on and stab it with the included cable. Plug in a monitor and keyboard, and apply the electrons. Let's verify Little Green is connected with LS-USB. There it is. Now it's time to decompress some Jetpack, being sure to use XPF. Then pop into the MFI folder and run the flash utility. This is going to take about 7 to 10 minutes, and when it's done, it'll look like this. Also, Little Green will be booting up, so let's go check it out. Alright, here we are. A little NVIDIA license to agree to, and it's a regular setup from that point, and we're done. Check out this default desktop. Hard 2005 NVIDIA vibes. First thing I want you to do is crack open a terminal and run this command. We're going to be using systemctl status to check our bootloader config. If that comes back green, you can skip this next part, but if it's a big honking red, pay attention. That's because if it fails 3 times in a row, you get a soft brick. Yep, there it goes. So don't do that, since the fix is to reflash. Now if I run df, you're going to see we're missing boot EFI. And there's our problem. So let's run list block, find the VFAT, and copy its UUID. Now we're going to make a boot EFI directory and install nano and use it to open FSTab. I'm going to create a new line telling the system where EFI lives, and this is where that UUID we copied earlier comes in handy. Give that a save, reload system deconfig, and mount all the things. And there it is. Time to reload the NVIDIA bootloader config, and when we check it now, it comes mean, green, and enabled. Okay, the first thing you never want to do is update the system. It will break in fantastic ways. You need to hold any packages that match NVIDIA L4T first. We're going to do that with app-mark hold. Now we can get all those security patches and updates that I've already installed, but hey, proof it works. You might have noticed the green eye up here, and that's how you adjust power modes. You have ranges numbered from 0 to 4, going from 10 watts up to 40. And what you paid extra for, Super. This GUI switcher can be unreliable, so let's head to the terminal and change our mode using NVP model 0 for power, type yes, and tap enter. Back from the reboot, and goodbye 40 watts, and hello, slightly more than 40 watts. Super mode, I guess. This is also where you can get at the Power GUI, and it's really neat. Stats for CPU and GPU, core loads, temps, power, fans, and engine utilization, along with the shutdown temps, fan info, and electron consumption. A quick health check shows us network is up and running, the display settings are what you would expect, options for analog and HDMI audio, and 2 power modes like you would expect on most desktops. System details show us everything's looking good, 16 gigs of memory, kernel 6.8, and X11 for windowing. And here's a free tip. You can add these 2 lines to your Xconfig to nope screen tearing. You're welcome. But since this is an NVIDIA SBC, you probably want to know, yes it does, right out of the box. 595 drivers, and CUDA is ready to go. And it's pretty snappy on the desktop, no slowdowns or visual glitches. According to Geekbench 6, despite being down 4 cores, it's not that far off the CIX 8180 in the Orion 06. And it's 50% faster in the Vulkan Compute benchmark. I mentioned earlier, one of the first things I did was swap out the pack-in Gen 3 drive for a Gen 4. Big performance boost. And KDiskmark does a good job showing that off. Hundreds of megabytes per second increase on sustained reads and writes, and just a nice uptick in everything across the board. And this is with a rando no-name Gen 4 drive out of a cheap mini PC. So seriously, upgrade the drive. I also want to check the dual Ethernet on the carrier board real quick. Port 1 is getting full speed, and it's more the same for port 2. But what if we hit them at the same time? Hey, there we go. Full speed on both. You know, a lot of boards choke on this test, so good job, Seed Studio. On to the real question, can I misappropriate an SBC designed for robotics, AI, and rapid prototyping to play video games, even if I have to emulate an x86-64 CPU with Box 64? This launching at all is a win, but even with all the overhead, Silksong's doing an impressive job hanging in there at 1080p. I wonder if I can throw Proton in. Yes, it plays CRYSIS. Haha, beat you to it. Even with the emulation overhead, it is humming along at 720p, but I couldn't get an FPS counter working. Regardless, it's smoother than whatever piece of junk I was trying to run CRYSIS on back in 2008. No problem with retro emulation either. Flycast loaded Crazy Taxi right up, and it's having no issues maintaining 60 FPS, even with the upscaling. Not only is it good looking, it's still ridiculously fun, even if this timer's a bit questionable. A bunch of the N64 recomps run great as well. This is Banjo Recompiled, a statically recompiled version of Banjo-Kazooie that runs natively on ARM, and even with a widescreen and graphical bits dialed all the way up to 11, it's locked in at a solid 60 FPS. And if you're worried about PlayStation 3, well, this game's locked at 30, but it does a good job showing off how much GPU grunt this little board has. Also, someone please make a 60 FPS patch. Being locked at 30 is just cruel and unusual punishment for such a fun game. And if we try the Box 64 plus Proton Power of Tower, we can load up Windows games, but all that overhead is brutal. Even for older titles, Recore's struggling to reach 30 FPS, but it is working, and I guess that's the important bit, since DXVK requires Vulkan 1.4, and a lot of single board computers don't got that. Not even a little bit. Now, I really wanted to find a way to use hardware-accelerated encoding with OBS. Getting at NVMe through NVMe was a rabbit hole of nonsense, but after building a fork of FFmpeg and patching up stream effects, I was able to expose both H.264 and H.265. Let's give it a gang of bandwidth to play with, and when we tap record on this critter, we should see NVEncode light up. And if we were doing this without hardware acceleration, that CPU load would be closer to 80%. This barely moves the needle. And I think this is a Gen 5 encoder, so we should be seeing RTX 30 series quality in the recording. And yeah, that looks great. Getting at the AV1 encoder was another adventure, but I eventually hammered out a solution using V4L2. Here it is transcoding the 4K 60 version of Big Buck Bunny, and that took a little under 7 minutes for a 10-minute clip. So that's about 1.58x real time, but it did it using 17 watts. Now, another thing I want to check is YouTube playback using regular ordinary Firefox. 1080p is no challenge for Little Green, and it's more the same when we dial things up to 4K. Sitting around 40% load on the CPU, and the GPU load is bouncing between 20 and 30%. And I want to stress, this is not some hacked up version of Chromium. Installed Firefox, and it worked out of the box. Now, out of morbid curiosity, I cracked open Blender just to see if the GPU was detected as a Cycles render device. And it was. Alright, I would have lost that bet. That is 100% working, and it's getting offloaded to the GPU. And you really have to keep in mind, this is all happening on something the size of a credit card. And if we tap the render button, oh my, the GPU jumps up to 99%, so it's doing, look at that. We did a render. Come on, that's pretty cool. I wanted to do an AI, or maybe two, so I fired up the Seed Studio Develop tool to give that a shot. Now, unfortunately, none of the LLMs were compatible with Jetpack 6 R36, and when I upgraded to Jetpack 7 R39, well, it wasn't compatible with that either. You'll need to fix that, because nobody's going to take the time to build Llama from source. Here I am building Llama from source. Basic config, I told it I'm rocking ARM and named it at CUDA, but this is another opportunity to show off the reComputer's overkill cooling solution. All 8 cores, super mode, max clocks, 50C on an SoC that doesn't throttle until 99C. But let's live a little and fire up Qwen 3.6 35B with a 32K context and no reasoning. And see how it goes. Alright, it looks like it's managed to squeeze into the 16 gigs of RAM. Now, let's give it a real task. Generating a map list from my Trackmania 2 server. I know it's not that exciting, but automating tedious nonsense is what I use LLMs for. And it's pulling it off at, what, 26 TikToks per second. And that's quicker than I can do it by hand. So I'm calling that a win. Moving on to old Gimli 4.0 26B, mostly the same settings, no reasoning. Alright, Clanker, go burr. That's almost not wrong. Let's see if it can be reasoned with. Not having it, huh? Alright, Gimli, let me draw it with a crayon real slowly for you. It finally figured it out, but our TikToks are down to 14? Let's see how it fares on the Interfacing Linux Turing test. It looks like we don't have to worry about AI taking over just yet. But we did get a dollar amount. Now it's the wrong one, but that's the right direction. Now I'm not against AI image generation, just so long as it's used for its intended purpose. Creating goofy pictures that are obviously AI generated. And for this, I'm using Zimage Turbo with Qwen 4B to generate my favorite sandwich and drink combo from the local eatery. And whatever's going on in this terminal is moonspeak to me. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it does eventually finish. Let's have a look. All right, yeah, that's about what I asked for, isn't it? I hate it, but I get it. Not the reComputer. That's brilliant. But after working with Broadcom, Rockchip, and CIX boards, I get why companies are willing to pay the iron price for these NVIDIA SBCs. You got the graphics stack, compute stack, video encode, decode, and it's all cleanly tied into their Jetpack, Ubuntu OS thingy. And yeah, you gotta put up with the NVIDIA nonsense, but after 20 years, it's a very familiar nonsense. As for the reComputer Super J4012, well, Seed Studio knows what they're doing. This thing is a solid block of metal, nigh indestructible, and completely silent. The carrier board has plenty of expansion, including a SIM slot, and I got a lot of use out of this recovery mode toggle. Although I wouldn't have minded some feats for the bottom, but you can always do this if you need something new on your desk to worry about knocking over. Now, if you're wondering about the price, brace yourself. These are aimed at businesses that do businessy things. This is going to set you back 164 gig stick of DDR5. Next to another one. I did warn you. And that's because NVIDIA decided the Orin NX 16 gig module was grossly underpriced at $599, so they bumped it to $999 because reasons. But if you've already picked one up and you're watching this video, I hope it was helpful. Be sure to leave a like to let Seed Studio know. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or in the forums. And be sure to swing by Interfacing Linux, where you can find a full write-up with some extra bits that didn't make it into the video. And I'll definitely be back with more projects using Little Green. But that's gonna do it for this one. So get out there and make something awesome.